Hello, and welcome back to River Valley Farm. Anyway, we are going to start part one of getting this 1938 F20 running. And to begin with, before we do much anything else actually, we are going to blow the dust off of this thing. It's been sitting here for at least a year, and if not two. I'm not real sure. Again, I don't really know how long the thing's been sitting around, but it's been a while, let's say. So as I said, we're going to start by just blowing the dust off of this thing. Hopefully that angle will get us some footage. The idea. I'm just going to go around and blow the dust off the thing, and then we'll move on with the next part of the job here. Alright, so as I mentioned in the previous video, quit knocking the camera around, you big dummy. Anyway, alright, as I mentioned in the previous video, the fuel tank on this thing is just absolutely filthy. So that's going to be my next step, is to remove the fuel tank and try and flush it out with gasoline, more than likely. Try and get as much of the old nasty, rusty, whatever it is in there out. So first step of the process is remove the glass bulb from the sediment bowl. And we'll take the little wire off too. So I think you can see that there is rust in there. It is again, the fuel tank has never been off in 80 years, I'm gonna say. So you know, that's just gonna be the way it is. There's a little bit of rust in there. There is a product on the market called Red Coat that I can use to seal this thing if it won't flush out, and then we can go from there. But next step of the process is going to be to remove this rubber fuel line over here. Make sure I'm getting it the right thing. It's got a rubber fuel line with an inline filter that's been spliced into it. So I'm going to need to get a new inline filter. I need to take this line off, and then we will have to separate the starting fuel tank line here and also over here at its valve. Hopefully they will come off. We'll find out soon enough, I suppose. So remove said fuel line. From here. This little stub piece I'm not too worried about, but this line back here, the actual the starting tank line. That one we're gonna have to try and save without destroying it. So let me go get some wrenches. Alright, so moment of truth here. Let's see if this line will come loose. Again, we're not gonna put a whole lot of force on it. That may have been too easy. So we'll just take this off. Brass on brass usually will come loose pretty easily. Well, let's see about the other side here. There it is. We may just be lucky as can be here, but so far so good on this thing. Let me get this line off and then we'll go to the next step. Alright, so our little curly-cued fuel line came off all in one piece. That's always good. We didn't even break any of the caked on 80 years of dirt and what have you off of it. So that's good, and you can see, being as this is a 38, it was originally red. There's still some paint under there. Okay, so I also removed the sediment bulb valve out of the tank. It's going to need some cleaning up, imagine that. But this piece has actually been out before because there's still like fairly new looking Teflon tape on it. But you know, such is going to happen in 80 years. Kind of like now, it needed to come out, so here we've got it out. Anyway, on to the next step, which is going to be removing the tank. Alright, so next on the list is to try and get these tank straps off. I'm going to say this way one time just because these straps are more than likely irreplaceable. We would have to have them made if we were to break one, so we are not going to break the straps. We will cut the bolts off if we have to. Bolts are easy to replace. The straps, not so much. So yeah, let's see. What else do we need to do here? We might as well take this thing off. It'll come off. Because cotter pins are easy to replace too, and this throttle linkage may not be. Pin is loose all the way through. That's good. That's it, the pin will come out. Anyway, let's get on to these bolts and see what happens. Check my angle here. Alright, I think that'll work. So, I've been soaking these bolts for weeks now, basically, in hopes of them coming loose. To start with, I'm going to grab the bolt, or the strap down by the bolt head with a wrench. Oh wow. Or with a pair of channel locks. And believe it or not, that bolt's coming loose. Yeah, like I said, I've been soaking these for a week probably, so this is good news though. I like good news. But yeah, it's just not even, didn't even strip the nut when I took it off. So, I got lucky on that one. Let's try the other one. What do you say? So fortunate on this one. Yeah, that one's not going to come loose. So one is going to be a pain in the butt, and the other one came right out. So, you know, not too bad for 80 years old, but yeah, we are not going to damage those straps beyond what they already are, though. Anyway, I'll be back in a minute once I cut that bolt off. Alright, so, good news. This bolt cut off and we didn't have any issue getting the strap out of there. This bolt that didn't cut, that the nut came off of, it was kind of a little bit stuck down in through here, but it, you know, tapped it with a hammer and it came up. So we're good there. Next issue is going to be fidgeting that tank out of there without destroying anything else, and hopefully that won't be very hard. But anyway, we're going to cut again here while I get that out. Alright, so as you can see, we've got the tank off. It wasn't a real issue at all. Just had to figure out which way to twist it, and it slid right out. So now let me see if I can find this any of this glorious stuff that's in here. So yeah, that magnet was pretty well perfectly clean before I stuck it in there, and it comes back out looking like that every time you stick it in this fuel tank. So we're gonna have to try and flush this thing out. As this is a baffled fuel tank, we're just going to have to try and wash it out of there somehow and go from there. But as you can see, it definitely has plenty of stuff in it. So I'm going to have to go to town, I believe, and get a pipe plug, some gas, and see what we can do here. Anyway, that's not good for a carburetor. Alright then, let me, yeah, we'll be back. Alright, so next step of our process here, I went and I picked up a 1/4-inch brass pipe plug that we're going to install in the bottom of the tank. Okay, so that's done. I have a fairly clean jug to pour the, I'm going to put about, I don't know, 1/2 gallon to 1 gallon of gas in the tank. I have a relatively clean jug to collect it in, and then we're just going to slosh it around and see what all comes out, basically. Positioning. Okay, then. Go this back a little bit. So now, shake it up and see what comes out. Alright, so we shook it up as you saw there, and now a little bit more measure. Move the plug. I suppose I should have taken a sample
But that's not what gas is supposed to look like. I will save this, hold this back, and we'll strain it through a coffee filter and see what all's in there. But I need another jug to get a little bit more fuel out of that tank. So I can only hope that this is going to clean it up really nice for us, but we'll see how it goes. This is one of those repeat as needed until it comes out clean kind of jobs. Okay, so I don't know exactly where I left off, but anyway, I have this magnet. It's a magnet for a CB radio antenna, basically. So what I'm going to do is I'm just going to stick this to the bottom of the fuel tank so that it collects all of the nastiness that is in there. You know, again, this sediment in the bottom of this jug, that doesn't need to be there. And the biggest part of it is rust. Those are all flakes of rust. So if I put this on the bottom of the tank, actually that is not rust. What is that shit? Anyway, I'm going to stick this on the bottom of the fuel tank, and we'll hope that it collects most of it. Worst come to worst, we have to pull the tank back off this tractor and put that red coat in it that I mentioned earlier. But first off, I want to get the thing to run, and this will go a long way to helping me get it to run, just having cleaned this tank out. Now to put it back together. Alright guys, so we've got our fuel tank mounted back on. Our little radiator shutter control is back in where it needs to be, roughly. You know, there's nothing about this thing that is perfect other than just the simple fact that it's never really been messed with. So I'm not too concerned about it. And you know, we've got our, like I said, we cut these bolts off, so I had to go get replacements for those. And then of course nobody has full length threaded bolts that are that long, so I had to make a little shim out of a nut so that we could get it in there, basically. So anyway, next step is to put our sediment bulb back in, which is pretty easy to do. We're just going to put some Teflon tape back on here and get it in there. So I've got it taped up. All that's left is just to screw it in. Like so. And it was about like that to meet up with this line over here. This line over here where the fuel filter, the inline fuel filter was at. So that will do. Now, actually it needs to come back just a little bit, I think, for our start tank line to hook up. So I better do that first before I get too carried away. Alright, so we've got our line here. Just get it started. Make sure you go gently. Alright, so that end is started.
Now to start the other end. Hopefully you'll be able to see something. Anyway, now to start this other fitting right here. Quite home yet. Sometimes it's necessary to use a little convincing force. So what we're going to do is we're going to take this wrench and stick it under here and tap lightly. There it went. Okay. Now it popped into place. That is that part of it. So again, we've got our start line here, and this is your starting fuel tank here. I've seen one person that actually had these. I've seen a couple of them still on kerosene, and you know, it's very imperative that you have this tank of gas so that you can get the tractor started and get it up to temperature to burn the kerosene. My great uncle, he owned several of these things at one time or another, and he said the ones he had that didn't have holes in this tank, he would use that as a reserve gas tank. So when he would run out of gas in here, he would just switch the tanks, turn this valve on, and then it would still flow fuel through here, through this, and down into the carburetor. And then he would go ahead and drive home on this one because it's only on this tank here because it's only a gallon or gallon and a half fuel tank. But anyway, all I got left to do is install an inline fuel filter, and then I'm probably going to have to go clean off my card so that we can video starting this thing. So yeah guys, I hope it's been interesting. If it has, hit the like button. If not, well, sorry about your luck. And please comment, rate, and subscribe for more. Thanks for watching, and we'll get this whole thing going here before you know it.